Council meeting's gonna start.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here in a minute.
Okay, well, let's not have that, but.
Okay, it is just after 6 down here at the mill in Lake Stevens, June 24th, 2025. And we're going to have a city council workshop meeting. So we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you would, please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Clerk Schelling, can I please get a roll call?
Sure. Councilmember Donahue,
Present.
Councilmember Daughtry,
Present.
Councilmember Peters Hagen,
Present.
Councilmember Shipman,
Present.
Councilmember Jorstad,
Present.
and Councilmember Ewing is at the AWC conference, so we'll need a motion to excuse.
Move to excuse Councilmember Ewing.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, that brings us on to the approval of the agenda. If everyone's had a chance to look over it, can I please get a motion to approve the agenda?
Council President, I just remembered something. We're going to remove potential litigation as one of the executive session topics tonight. So the only topic will be the candidate, evaluate the qualifications of a candidate for appointment.
Oh, right. Clarify, it's a regular meeting, not workshops.
Okay.
It
So
does.
just the one executive session item tonight with action to follow potentially. And number two, I think you just mentioned it's a workshop meeting and it is a special meeting tonight,
Okay, then,
or a regular meeting.
okay, that's what I thought, but it says workshop on the agenda, so I don't know if we need to, okay,
This is a regular meeting where they can take action.
correction. That's, okay.
Thank you.
This is a regular meeting. So with that in mind, could I please get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, got an agenda. That brings us on to guest business. So I believe, turn that over to you, Anya.
Good evening, council and citizens. We are going to hear from a presentation from Compensation Connections. We have contracted with them to perform our non-represented and Teamsters salary survey for 2025. We hired them back in 2022 to perform a similar survey, and they are doing a refresh study this year. So we'll be kicking off with them today, and I will hand it over to them. They have some slides they want to go through and make sure that we are on track as far as comparator cities and to get them started on their work for the year. So I'll introduce Kathy and Shannon.
Hello, thank you, Anya, and good evening, council. So as Anya mentioned, we've been engaged to refresh the market study that was performed a couple of years ago. Our slide deck is included in this evening's board packet starting on page 3. If you want to refer to that. I can share screen if you would like. Just let me know.
She has permission to.
You have permission to, if you want to share, that's fine, or we can have our clerks share,
Oh,
whichever.
no, I can do it. Let me do it. Okay. Is that visible?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Great. All right. So, and again, this is included in the board packet beginning on page 3. So of course, why now? So always a question when beginning a market study. So of course, the Puget Sound area continues to be a challenging labor market. And, in acknowledgement of that, the council authorized a 3-year review, refreshing the 2022 market study. So trying to keep, the finger on the pulse of what is happening in the current competitive environment. In terms of what activities we will be performing during the market study, so we will research and refresh our comparable market data. We will review and update pay range structure as applicable, make some recommendations related to that. We always, in this study, in this process, analyze employee pay compared to what would be the updated or proposed pay ranges and determine any potential budget impacts. So when we performed this study last time, we discussed, the compensation philosophy of the city. We discussed that with Anya and reviewed that with you all. And the goal of the philosophy is really to provide balance with the external market, internal alignment, attracting and retaining employees, and of course, budget, fiscal sustainability. When we look at the philosophy, we are examining the labor market. And in this context, that's, other cities and organizations in the public and private sector to be able to understand the labor market as a whole, where you may hire employees from or potentially lose them to. And when we look at the market research, we do compare back to the median or 50th percentile of the market, also the 60th and 75th percentiles as well. So we can understand, where the city is paying now compared to what's happening at different points across the market. So as Anya mentioned, one of the things that we definitely want your opinion on is the potential cities used as the peer group, if you will, the comparators for the study. So this is where we do look at, what these municipalities are paying for jobs similar to Lake Stevens jobs. And the focus of this group is to think about, competitors for talent. So again, where Lake Stevens employees may come from or go to, as well as, good general benchmarks in terms of just understanding what's happening with other municipalities in the area. So this is the list that was used when we performed the study in 2022. We have updated the population and assessed value and per capita numbers that are on the screen. So this is the latest available data, but the list of cities is what we used in 2022 for this part of the study. And just a couple of observations here. You can see that typically we're looking at plus or minus, 50 within 50 miles or so of Lake Stevens. It's in general. So something that would be considered maybe a commutable distance for someone. And I'm just going to pause as you take a look at that and see if you have any questions. I think now would be a great time. If you have any questions about the list or thoughts.
Can you explain the assessed valuation numbers that are up there?
Sure. So that is the assessed value of real estate. That should all be, I think I put millions, and it should be billions as I'm looking at this list. So it's real estate value.
8.5 billion. I don't know about that figure, but I know it's higher than
It's
8.5 million.
Yeah, I'm realizing. I think.
I think
Oh,
millions. I think
Anya.
you're on your spreadsheet, it's millions.
Yeah.
The assessed valuation in Lake Stevens is 8.5 million.
No, it's more than that.
No way.
Apologies, council.
It doesn't matter what year it was. It could be 1942. It's not accurate remotely. I mean, that's 4 houses on the lake.
No. Just
This
a
is
moment.
property tax assessed valuation. I know from MRSC data.
That is what it is.
Correct. What is the
Yeah, no, that is what it is. And I think I just plugged in, I was trying to shorthand the millions piece. So just a moment. So
I guess that leads to the other question, the per capita number.
millions, billions. Yeah, it is billions.
I don't understand either of those columns.
Okay. I'm gonna share screen again, so just a moment. I'm gonna stop this and I'll reshare. One moment, please. Okay. I'm just making sure I'm sharing the right thing. I'm gonna make this bigger so you can read it. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
It's
so
8 million.
yeah, so this is the
$1,680,000,000.
Right.
yeah,
Only off by a factor of 100.
Yeah. Change
sorry
the-
about that. I should have said billions instead of millions. So my apologies. But this is this column here. And then I'm gonna scroll down. And then this number here is the per capita.
And what does that mean per capita?
So that's the assessed value for an individual member of the population. So it's just a factor of dividing the assessed value by the population count, which is here.
So,
And I
so how does that equate to
Mhm.
anything that we're studying?
So yeah, so it's just a size. All it is it's a size comparison. When we think about the different factors to utilize, so it's trying to get a sense of like what's the general size of the obviously population is one thing, but what's the general size of the the economy more broadly for the that particular municipality. So it's just trying to get you a sense, a way to sort of compare them from a numbers perspective.
So it's also like a statewide perk criteria that's used. So which I think we've talked about before is in interest arbitrations, they at the perk board in Washington State, they use a criteria for how we identify comparative cities, and that is looking at 50% above or below our population as well as assessed value. And so it's a very commonly used statistic to determine how your city compares to other cities in your area, and what you should be paying. And so it's assessed value is a very common factor in that. And even those factors are even growing to like even looking at sales tax and those kinds of things as well.
Mhm.
So I guess kind of along those lines, one thing that jumps out to me, I mean, the first thing I would want to know is how much do each of these entities have available? Like, what's their budget like? Because just because there's a similar number of people, I mean, if another city has double our budget or half our budget, that's going to probably affect how much they can afford to offer. So, do we look at that at any point?
We can. We have not in the past study, in part because we were looking at like likely talent competitors, which meant that, if someone paid more or less, it was then Lake Stevens, it was still within sort of the zone for talent competition. But we could certainly do that.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I don't know what everyone else thinks, but for me, I would want to know how much I have to spend before I spend it.
Agree.
Other thoughts on that?
Nope. I think we go ahead and move to the next slide.
Okay, great. All right. So in addition to that more targeted research, we also utilize and suggest utilizing published survey sources. This is employer-provided data that that we then, purchase surveys or subscribe to surveys. The Association of Washington City survey is an example of one of these published survey sources. And so in the last study in 2022, we utilized these sources, what's on the screen here, that gets at other government agency data, as well as kind of all types of organizations, so nonprofit, for-profit organizations in the Lake Stevens area. And this helps to capture what's happening in the labor market overall within the area for Lake Stevens jobs, like those, the jobs that are out in the broader labor market that are similar to those found at Lake Stevens. So any questions about this data set or using this kind of data in addition to the comparable city data? Not hearing any. All right. Then, so from a timeline perspective, so we're officially starting the project today with you all, and we do anticipate having preliminary numbers in August, and then final results in early September. We understand that the council meets in early September, so we want to be able to come back to you all and present the results of the study and any recommendations that might be made as part of the study. In the meantime, of course, very interested in Anya, if you want to comment on the annual budget for the comparators and kind of being able to eventually move forward once we have that list finalized.
So my question to council is the budget information, does that help you determine on the list of cities? And we should come back with that information before we finalize the list? Or are we good to move forward with the list we have and add in the budget information for the final results?
Well, I think the budget information, I mean, I agree with Ryan on this, but I also think that it needs to be, we need to see a percentage of salaries to their budget.
Mm-hmm.
The budget by itself is not going to tell us what they're doing with their salaries. So if we have a percentage of salaries to budget, that's going to help us determine which ones are more comparable to us.
Any other thoughts on that? Is that something, again, my question is, do you want to look at that as part of the final results, or does that determine the list that they use?
I mean, I think it should at least be a factor in the list because, somebody, if we can go high, say someone has 5 times our budget, I don't know that it's really meaningful to compare us to them because they're clearly going to be able to outspend on any position. So I would like to see kind of how we compare to other municipalities, that match us on these factors, but are also kind of within blast radius as far as what they can spend.
Part of my, like what I'm thinking in my head too is like a city like Linwood, their sales tax base is huge. They have also, so their percent to salary also is going to be way larger than us because they have like 400 staff and we have 140. And so that is going to like affect their percent to budget quite a bit. And yet they are the same population as us and they are like a comparator and a competitor for us for staff. So does it really determine whether we should use them in the salary study, knowing that it's just, they're a completely different animal? does it really matter at the end of the day? Because our percent to salary is also dependent on how many FTEs we have.
Well, I mean, I guess now that you mentioned that, that would be probably a good metric to have in there as well. I guess I'm still processing. I mean, if someone else wants to jump in, please do. I'm still processing, if Linwood is a completely different animal, why are we comparing ourselves to them?
If our budget is a completely, like they're not even similar, not even close. I mean, we can look at the size of our cities. I'm a little confused as to housing prices, why that's such a heavily weighted thing in this determination. It also could be said that Linwood has a lot more apartments than Lake Stevens. And if you're going by real estate, that's apples and oranges. When we talk about population and the number in multifamily units versus individual homes. So we're apples and oranges. So I can understand what you're saying about how they could be competitors wooing away potential city employees. But at the end of the day, we have a budget. And if our budget is significantly different than other towns, I think it's meaningless to compare the two of us. As a small business owner, I have a budget. Doesn't matter what larger businesses' budgets are. I have a budget. And we can't spend beyond our budget. So that would kind of be my thought, is that we compare apples to apples. And I just really don't understand what real estate values have to do with salaries, especially when your demographics are so very different.
So apples to apples, I'll tell you, is extremely tough. You're not going to find a city that's like Lake Stevens.
No,
So-
we're the
What about
best.
budgets? What about budget?
Yes.
Someone who has a similar budget.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at factors like on what services we provide to other cities, we've looked at that before, their FTE count, their income, like all those things. That's why we have a range of 50% over and 50% under. So it's not meant to have apples and apples. It's try to get us a reasonable gauge of what is out there that is somewhat comparable. We're never going to find an apples to apples comparison. Which is why we also focus like on the west side of the state versus the east side of the state too, to try to gain some focus in the Puget Sound region.
Sorry if I missed this. I guess maybe I missed, what is it that you need from us? Like, what is it that you're looking for in presenting this information? I'm not sure where we're going.
So what we want to make sure is that our comparator cities are still the same, or if we wanted to narrow that down.
And the comparator cities in relation or regarding looking at salaries and wages for staff.
That's right.
And that list we presented to you is what we did use in 2022.
Okay. Thank you.
And so this is a refresh study. So, I mean, it would be great if we didn't move the list too much because it is a refresh study unless we want to go out there and do a new.
So are there any major changes in this chart between 2022 and 2025?
Yeah, that's a great question, Shannon. I know we discussed that. Do you want to answer that?
Yeah. So a couple of the cities increased in assessed value. I mean, all the cities increased in assessed value. But a couple increased more substantially than others. And so they just ended up moving further down the list. But on the whole, everyone kind of went up in assessed value. So just reporting on that particular metric for the group.
So no drastic changes.
No.
So everybody went up about the same percentage, is what you're saying.
Mhm.
It seems like we're making this way too difficult. I mean, you got City of Linwood, they don't do water and sewer. That's similar to us. They have a parks department that's similar to us. They have a police department that's similar to us. They have a public works similar to us. It would seem to me I would assume the wages are public information and you grab that information. That's what it is for Linwood and 3 or 4 other cities and see where we fall. It just seems like we're making this really complicated.
Well, essentially what you're saying is what they will be doing.
Yeah, again,
with
but
the
I don't,
list of cities.
I don't understand this whole assessed valuation as it, how it gets to wages. So I guess I'm kind of ignorant on that. But at the same time, you know, Lake Stevens, we all talk about as a unique place. There is a quality of life issue here and working here. So I don't know how big a factor that is, but there's something to be said for that. What it is, I don't know. But again, I think if you just took comparable salaries of the various positions, we could probably find out.
And I agree. I mean, if you can live and work in Lake Stevens and you're not commuting out, there's value to that.
Mhm.
You know, the hours that you're not spending commuting down south, there's value to that. And, you know, yeah, so like I said, I agree. We've got a budget and I think we need to start with our budget and then look at comparables. But the bottom line is our budget. And if we have a shortfall, is there something we can do to increase it, right? But my concern is comparing us to a city that maybe has a substantially larger budget. Because at the end of the day, there's only so many dollars in the bank.
I guess, and I understand too that we need to have a list of comparable cities for the work that is done to determine wages and for a host of other, we've used this list for other situations as well. The thing that I wonder about when I look at the list is, do we look at the outliers and determine whether or not they need to stay on the list?
Mhm.
So I look at Everett, for example, you know, it has 3 times the assessed valuation. It has almost three times the population. Like, is Everett really comparable to us? Yes, it's close to us, but it doesn't share many of the same demographics. I think about the same thing for Mount Vernon. It's quite a bit smaller. It's in a different county. I wonder about Bothell also being in King County and also having, you know, twice as high assessed valuation. So I guess if we're looking at really wanting to narrow the list and look at more comparable cities, and I think there are other metrics that are used to determine what's comparable, then maybe that's where we start is, does it really need to be this big? Kind of to Gary's point. And then I would suggest we start with eliminating some of the obvious outliers.
Mhm.
I mean, our comparable cities are Marysville, Arlington, maybe Monroe, Mount Lake Terrace, maybe Mukilteo. So you're 5 or 6 of them, not 2, 4, 6, 8, what, 13.
I think the reason why we start with a larger list too is because finding job matches is sometimes difficult because of the different services that each city provides. Not everyone has like a communication and grants coordinator like we do. And so having a larger breadth of available cities that we're willing to compare to, we like to like have a comparison of at least 3 to 5 cities for each job class. And so when you're limiting it only to 6 cities, then you're really limiting on how many comparables you'll have for each position, because not every position is the same across each city.
Well, if that's a salary to salary comparison between 2 almost identical jobs, then what are we talking about? Go do that.
What do you mean?
Why do we need comparable cities for that? If we need that large of a list of just to be able to get a job to job comparison. Okay, go get a job to job comparison and find out who it is in this list and for for the one that you said, and where's that at everywhere for whoever has that. Police officer is pretty simple. He knows all about that. So he'd probably tell us that right now, all police officers and what they are comparables throughout the county or even probably half the state. So I'm kind of perplexed at why are we having a big discussion about what the comparable cities are when we're looking at comparable salaries for positions? Is that not correct?
Yes, I think it's a balanced approach though. And Shannon, feel free to jump in here. You do this far more often than I do, but you know, we wouldn't necessarily go grab a job from city of Seattle or even maybe a county that's on the east side of the state. So it's not just simple about finding a job match. We want to still have a balanced approach on like kind of being a little bit more comparable or in competitor model because salaries are different on the east side of the state or at a county or a state level.
So what you're basically telling us then is throughout this whole conversation is that the comparables are usually based on population assessed valuation and per capita. This is the best guess at what our comparables would be.
Mhm.
Conversation's done.
We just want
If that's
consensus.
if that's what you want to compare it to, I mean, we're not the experts, right? We need to be listening to you on what we're doing there, but I don't know what other data we could compare to.
And it doesn't seem like we have all the information that we need to even make any sort of a decision. I mean, you know, I think talking about making the list smaller and then you presenting information about why it can't be small, and that's not information that we have. So I guess I'm still sort of struggling with what our role is here and what you're needing from us.
I think we're looking to make sure that this list is still a list we want to use. And what I'm hearing is we'd love more budget information, possibly. But my recommendation is that maybe we just move forward with the current list we have and we'll add the budget information to present back to council when we come back from break at maybe like the preliminary results stage. Does that sound okay to you, Shannon and council?
So yeah, I guess my last question is, it's been a while. I don't think I've even 22. Yeah. What's the final output going to look like? So we're talking about finding or comparable job postings. Are we going to get a breakdown of, different jobs and here's kind of what the range is? Is it going to be department wide? Here's the average city salary. I mean, how's that going to look when we get it?
Yeah, so what we provide is, and we don't use job postings. If they are represented jobs, we use the collective bargaining agreements. Otherwise, we use information directly from the cities in terms of what they are paying for this sort of targeted research. And all of that data is provided back to Anya in detail, including the published survey data as well. And then what we do is we typically, and like in 2022, we worked with Anya on a recommendation for adjustments to the salary schedules. And then perform the analysis to be like, all right, well, where are employees paid relative to a proposed, salary schedule, and then modeled out the implementation around that and what that would cost. And so all of that information is given in detail to Anya, but we also came to the council at that time and presented an overview of everything that we found and the recommendations.
Okay. And so I guess that is part of why I'm particularly interested in this list, is because if it's going to come back to us in the form of here's a proposed adjustment, if we don't get this list right, those adjustments could be off. We could either be overpaying or underpaying if the comparable cities aren't, reasonably accurate.
Yeah. And I think that's, bottom line, why we wanted to come to you to discuss like the cities, because they are used for decision making, or at least factor into decision making. I know you've talked a lot about budget and et cetera, like the cities, what the city can afford. That's what I meant when I said budget just now. So yeah, we want you to, be making decisions on data that you are comfortable with.
Okay. So, to kind of move things forward, I would propose if we keep the list the same, but we include the budget information like you suggested, then that way it doesn't require going out and generating a whole new list, but we can at least add some context to it and kind of figure out if, as was mentioned, maybe there's an outlier or two in there that are either pulling numbers down or up. So anyone have a different thought?
I agree with that because the list hasn't changed from 2022 and significantly anyway. So using the same comparable cities for this salary adjustment would be fine.
Okay. Is that enough to move forward?
Yeah, and if we have sooner findings on all the budget information, I can do a department report back in between now and August, just to make sure that we're being cognizant of their time on gathering comparators if we wanted to take one away. Because you won't necessarily, when we present back to council the results, it's at a very high level because we have 70 or 80, I think, job classes that we're looking at. And so you're not gonna we're not gonna provide like the full list and of all the data necessarily. We're gonna provide you all the summaries and then the 50th and the 60th and the 75th percentile and the recommendations.
Right.
So it'll be distilled down for you. And so I will get with our consultant and kind of get a game path moving forward and report back if needed, if there's a big budget.
Okay. All right. Anything else or?
Anything else from Shannon or Kathy? All right.
No,
Thank you so much for attending.
Yes, thank you.
yeah, thank you for the time and the discussion.
Okay, that moves us on to item 6, citizen comments. So I will go ahead and see if we have anybody online who would like to comment.
So we do have some people online. So let me just ask if you would like to speak to the council and you are on our Zoom meeting right now digitally, if you can raise your digital hand, I can let you into the meeting.
While we're waiting, I will also just remind everyone that this is a comment portion, so people are free to comment. The council will not respond. We will definitely listen and take any comments to heart, but just know that this is not a time for active discussion. So,
No digital hands.
okay, no digital hands.
Yep.
Then just for any other green sheets, or is this all we got? Make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, good. We'll check. All right. While she is checking, I will go ahead. First one I've got here, Richard Trout. Am I reading that correctly? Okay. So Richard, if you could come up here and should have a time here on the, that's on? Okay. So time is right here. Richard, please.
Hey, my name is Rick Trout. I know.
Hi, Rick.
Hi, Rick.
Oh.
Can you just lift it for?
Usually talk pretty loud, so, okay. Is that all right?
That's great.
Okay. So yeah, the understand, just here to comment, didn't really have anything prepared, but we live over on 123rd, so right in between 124th and Millspur here, or 17th, sorry, the boat launch road. And this started last year, but since Millspur has been done, we noticed there's a lot more people on busy days bringing boats on Millspur and then taking a left on 123rd and then taking the sharp, trying to cut into the line with everybody lined up on 17th coming into the boat launch. 2 Sundays ago, I think it was, my driveway, actually, the 3 houses that are on there, all 3 of our driveways were blocked for hours during that day because people coming in with boats, a lot of people don't want to let them in because they've just waited in line all the way along 17th. Plus, a couple of people got in trouble because now they have to make a 90-degree turn with the trailer and the fences there. And they have to wait until both lanes are cleared so they can take that corner wide enough and get around. I have pictures. I have sent them to a member of city council. At one point, there was an ambulance stuck in front of my driveway and I was talking to him. He wasn't going on a call or anything, but he was just sitting there and I was asking him, I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? He's like, this is crazy. And again, I hate being that guy that's complaining, but there's just a lot of road rage that I see. I see yelling matches right outside our driveway. People are cussing and, flipping people off and, just people keep coming in on Millspur Road. And I just wonder if the council could maybe take into consideration, we take the Edmonds Ferry a lot. There's that one road, I can't remember what it is. You cannot come down that middle road and cut into the ferry line. It says no ferry access. I think you can even get ticketed for cutting into the ferry line. You have to enter from the ferry lane. Is it possible, or maybe you guys could think about some signage, or maybe we could restrict boat traffic from coming down Millspur and turning on 123rd. Again, I don't mind, the regular traffic that happens is not a big deal, but that Sunday I had friends coming into my house who couldn't get there. My wife needed to leave at one point. We had to wait, and it was kind of chaos. So see, my time's running out, but thank you. That's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks.
Okay. Next, we have looks like Derek, is it Bollinger? Did I say that correctly? All right. So, Derek, all right, your time is right here. Feel free.
Basically, what I'm looking for is a traffic assessment study. I live on 99th Avenue, which is right between 20th and South Lake Stevens Road. Well, they put the new roundabout in down by the Costco. So to avoid the light there on 20th and 99, I live on a little 1-block road that is turned into a cutoff so everybody could avoid that light and go around the roundabout. Well, it's a little 2-lane road. There's no sidewalks. We have about 15 children living on the road in 1-block radius, senior citizens, and of course myself. And it gets used as a raceway twice a day. For a while there, you actually had one of those little speed limit things up there that told people how fast they were going, and that actually did help. But yeah, we're getting cars coming up and down that road doing 50 miles an hour plus on a 25-mile-an-hour road. You know, it's turned into a rush hour raceway. It's basically gotten unsafe. I've lived here all my life, and the road has never been like that. And it's a cutoff to get around the light. So I just need some kind of a traffic assessment study done so we can make that road actually safe again God, there's like 15 kids in a 1-block radius, senior citizens, myself. I can't even go out on the road. I'll get killed. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Some of my neighbors are also here. There's one of my neighbors. She has 2 very small children, lives next door. Can't play in the front yard anymore at certain times of day. It's not all day long, but it's during the rush hour times. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I would just like something to be done to maybe a speed bump or a sign or something, anything. All right, thank you. I don't know if there's anything Gabrielle wanted to add to that.
Am I able to?
Technically, no. If you want to give a quick comment, very quick from the back.
Yeah, it's about, I know there's 2 bus stops on the road as well. And there have been a few close calls where cars have actually swerved and driven into almost down to the gully, trying to avoid children that step out either to get a ball or they're on their bike and somebody's speeding around a UPS or something like that. And it's just, it has gotten night and day difference in the traffic just since the roundabout was put in.
Okay.
The parents are just a little concerned.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you
that.
guys for listening.
Absolutely. Thank you, Derek. All right. Next, we have Ray Welk. All right, Ray, get your time here on the clock and go ahead and start
Okay.
whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I don't have anything prepared tonight. I just, I'm actually a little disappointed Brett's not here, but that's okay. And I'm assuming that the announcement Ben made Thursday night about the 116th, 117th couplet is correct. He said it was a done deal, was not going to happen. And I haven't seen anything online for that, but I haven't really looked either. But anyway, I just wanted to say thank you. Thanks to Gary for coming out and actually counting cars and seeing what's really happening there. Really doesn't fit, but with the comments that people just ahead of me made, it seems like we have a traffic speed problem, because that was a big focus on our deal too. So I'm just concurring with what they're saying. I mean, it's a totally different neighborhood, but gosh, maybe it's time to get a handle on that. So that's it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Ray. Okay, and last one, we have Billy Lyman. Hi. All right, Billy, your time is right here on the clock. Go ahead and start
Okay.
whenever you're ready.
So I was part of the 116th and 117th, not wanting those one-ways to go through. And I believe it is a done deal. It's not going to go through, is what we were told. So I wanted to say thank you and expressed my gratitude for that. And I think the next step is that they are going to go forward with sidewalks on 117th. So I can go out, pound the pavement again if need be. I will be happy to do that if it helps with getting that done. So that's it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Billy. Okay, that is it for citizen comments. So that brings us on to council business. Go ahead and start down at the end with Councilmember Jorstad.
Nothing for me tonight. Thanks.
All right, Councilmember Shipman.
Attended the last school board meeting on June 11th. So they're on break. They're going to have one in July and August, but that was our last opportunity to hear the Apple Awards and just see some of the amazing staff and kids that we have in our district. And they touched a bit on the bond and some extra, they got what's called a levy equalization money, approximately $11 million over 4 years. They got another thing was like $50 per student. So that's another approximate $500,000. So they're really looking for other funds as well as, what we pay in our taxes and the bond and that type of thing. And speaking of the bond, they did touch on that as well. And just how much thought is going into the design of these new schools. Everyone talks about Skyline not having doors. Right. And back in the 90s, everyone thought that was a really great idea. Right. Turned out to be not so much a great idea. So they're looking at, what's best practice now and what's going to hold, 10, 15 years down the road. So they are doing a lot of stakeholder engagement, student engagement. They're doing surveys. They're going to be at the farmers market. So they really encourage citizens to come talk, ask questions, and stay informed, stay involved as they move forward with their bond measure. But just because they're on summer break doesn't mean that all comes to a halt. So, and that's it.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Peter Sagan.
Yes, I attended the Historical Society's annual meeting last night. And I'll put our community development director, Russ, right on the spot. But they are anxiously awaiting for a date, hopefully to get some idea when things will be moving forward with dirt.
And I don't have a definitive date to provide you tonight, but when I do, I will bring that back to the council.
Okay, great. I just posing the question because I'm sure some folks are listening. So, and just briefly, I had a discussion with our city engineer, Kim Klinkers, before the meetings, why I jogged around the table here, but she's going to bring back some more information next week for us on the striping issue and markings for that. I think it's a worthy discussion that we should have. And hopefully we get some more information and clarification as to actually what's going to take place this year. So that's all.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Daughtry.
I've got nothing except for Aquafest is on its way. Everybody come on down and enjoy it. We got the carnival. I'm going crazy right now trying to get ready, but we're going to have some fun. Come on down. If you have some time, come down and volunteer.
All right, thank you. For me, sadly, I can mention that there was a planning commission meeting last night. However, there were some technical issues when I tried to attend virtually. So I can't really comment on that, but I wanted to acknowledge the planning commission and the great work they're doing along with city staff. And then I just wanted to check in and see if there were any agenda items the council's thinking about, things they'd like to see brought forward here in their last couple meetings before break. Just kind of checking in. Not really hearing anything.
Is there a possibility of seeing what's upcoming?
Normally, yes. I don't know if we have that list. I can have Clerk Chell. Is that something that we can send out after the meeting tonight? Perfect. There we go. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you.
All right.
I will just say,
Yes.
just to beat a dead horse, would
Hit
love
it.
an update on the Everett water line issue.
All right. We can add that to our parking lot and
I thought we buried that horse.
okay.
I'm just trying to figure out when I need to go to the Everett City Council meeting and
And okay.
be loud. So just, planning my schedule.
All right. And then let's see.
Can I go and watch?
And the week.
I don't believe Mayor Gailey's attending online. No mayor's business. Okay. Yes. Oh, I meant to mention that. Yes. The reason he is not here is he is attending the AWC conference along with Councilmember Ewing. Okay. That brings us to item number 9A, City Department Report, the boat launch parking enforcement update with David. So David, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Dave Green, Parks. We begin implementing our multi-departmental plan for notification and enforcement at the city boat launch parking areas. Thank you, council, for your support of our ongoing efforts, which are outlined in this staff report. I'm going to give a general overview of the milestones we have met so far and the ones we're working towards. In the last 2 weeks, we have started our public messaging on social media. We've created educational reminder cards we can place on windshields of non-compliant vehicles. We've painted boat trailer parking only at many of the stalls at the North Cove parking area, and we have ordered permanent boat trailer only signage that when it arrives, we will post. For future milestones, Public Works has received a quote for parking lot striping, and we've been working with the police on enforcement strategies. We're happy with the early results of voluntary compliance, and we have observed since our efforts have begun. If you have any questions, I can try to answer them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, David. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Any questions?
Okay. So I have a question, and it's for both myself and then I've had a couple citizens reach out as well. Last year, did we accept the Discover Pass?
Yes.
So this is the concern. And someone had mentioned that there was duct tape over it on the sign or something, and I've not gotten a chance to go verify that where it used to say we accepted it. So this is the deal. So I'm going to just share my personal experience. I bought a personal watercraft late last summer. I looked at my different parking options at Cove Park because I live a mile down the street. My most affordable option that made sense because I could use it at other state parks was the Discover Pass. So my Discover Pass does not expire until September. And so I think it was a fair assumption to think when I bought a Discover Pass to park at Cove Park, it would be valid this year as well, because there was no warning on the city website that this was the last summer they were going to be used. Basically, we could buy a city pass, I think was $100. Last year, there was no hourly parking available at Cove Park. So basically your options were a Discover Pass. I think the fishing pass might still have been good last year, but it didn't apply to me. So I didn't look into it too much. Or I could buy a Lake Stevens pass for $100. So to the citizens, including myself, that purchased a pass expressly to park at Cove Park to only be able to use it during the fall and not the following summer without any notice prior to purchase that it wasn't going to be valid the following summer doesn't sit right with me. And I've had a couple other people reach out too, because they were not either. They weren't notified either. I mean, they just kind of find out when we say, this is what's now accepted for parking at Cove Park. And it just doesn't sit right with me. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. David, if you would like to respond, you may, or I don't know if anyone else has another question. Not hearing anything.
Could we reevaluate that?
Yes, when Sarah returns, we'll discuss that. I do have a note from her from the October 15th, 2024, which was a Tuesday. And it was about the council meeting and providing a 2-month public notice after that meeting that the Discover Pass would no longer be.
But who uses their boat in December? That's unreasonable. If you put a notice out in October, how many boats are out there on the lake in November, December? That's not the appropriate time to do this.
But it was a 2-month notice that would no longer be used? Is that?
No longer be.
Yeah, so as of December, it wasn't good anymore. So again, people like myself, and I'm not alone in this, that purchased passes late last summer when maybe they got a watercraft on sale because it's the end of the summer and they're saying, okay, what's my best case scenario parking at Cove Park? And then they're able to use it 6 weeks before the weather turns bad. and thinking they'll be able to use it this summer as well. I mean, people are budgeting a lot right now. And that just seemed like something that wasn't necessary. And that if we wanted to say, okay, we're going to honor Discover passes that are still valid through, the end of the summer through August or whatever our peak boating season is, that would be I think that would be fair. But for people who bought one midsummer, last summer, thinking they're going to be able to use it again this year, to get notice in the winter, they're not going to be able to use it, a handful of months after they bought it just does not seem appropriate to me. I think that needs to be revisited.
I hear what you're saying and Parks Department will look at it. I'll get with Jill and Sarah next week when Sarah returns and
Thank
look
you.
at it. Yep. Thank you.
Are the new rules or the new striping and all and the fines going to be enforced during farmers market days?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Any other questions for David? David, anything else from you?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 10, the consent agenda. So, any changes we need to make to that? Has everyone had a chance to look that over?
A little late now, we already approved the agenda.
The agenda, but not the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on to item 11, discussion items. The draft 2026 to 2031 6-year, there's a lot of numbers and hyphens there. 6-year transportation improvement program with Kim Klinkers. Oh, okay, she is back there. Kim, over to you.
Good evening. Thank you for the introduction. Yep, my name's Kim Klinkers. I'm the city engineer here in the Public Works Department. And I am here to do a quick presentation on our draft transportation improvement program this evening. Let me hit the presentation button real quick. There we go. All right, I have a couple slides here just to supplement what was included in your packet. So I wanted to start with a quick overview of what is a TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program, why is it needed, provide some reference documents that we used that the City of Lake Stevens has adopted. We can review and discuss the draft TIP that's in your packet, quickly overview next steps, and then open it up for discussion. But this evening in the staff report, the requested action is to discuss the information presented and provide direction to allow staff to prepare the final TIP for public hearing and request adoption at the July 1st City Council meeting, which is next week. So I wanted to start with just doing a quick overview of what is a TIP. It is a state law per the RCW. And it's a comprehensive 6-year plan that allows cities and towns to adopt and update annually, which outlines transportation improvement projects. The TIP requires public hearings before adoption and must be filed with the Secretary of Transportation, so that's WSDOT in our case, to secure state and federal funding for transportation projects. In some cases, some grant applications require that the projects are already on our TIP to be able to apply for these grant funds, but in most cases, it's a condition for us to be able to obligate the grant funds and use them for our projects. Additionally, the TIP must incorporate bicycle and pedestrian facilities. This is the actual RCW language. I just provided a summary in the previous slide. I just wanted to highlight the intent is that each year the TIP is updated and there's a public hearing and council adopts it through resolution, and they have a target date of July 1st of each year. So that's right around the corner, and that's why we're trying to talk about it here tonight. So one more quick summary slide about the TIP. This was overviewed in the staff report, but I just wanted to highlight that the TIP is a planning document and does not authorize any funds for projects that are listed. And there's no direct financial impact associated with the TIP that we're going to review this evening. The project costs that are listed are preliminary estimates and align with the city's existing plans that we'll look at as well. So why is a TIP needed? For long-term planning, it helps ensures that cities and towns have a perpetual 6-year transportation plan to guide infrastructure improvements and coordinate transportation projects. It helps jurisdictions secure state and federal funding for transportation projects and ensures compliance with Washington state transportation planning requirements. And it requires public hearings before adoption and ensures cities plan for non-motorized transportation, which promotes regional transportation connectivity. This is a personal example for us here at Lake Stevens in the Public Works Department. This is a letter from WashDOT highlighting one of our projects, the 20th Street and Main Street Improvements Project, which is our roundabout that's currently under design, that they intend to award us a $2.5 million federal earmark. But one of the conditions that I've highlighted here in the letter is that before we're able to obligate these funds and use them for construction, we have to have them in our TIP, and we have to coordinate with WashDOT to include this particular project in the statewide transportation improvement program, which is called the STIP. So as we were developing the draft TIP that's in your packet, there were several reference documents that we referred to. Primarily, it was the most recently updated and adopted comprehensive plan. The cover sheet's shown here. Within the comprehensive plan is our 6-year capital improvement plan, which we'll look at, in addition to our 20-year capital facilities plan, which list future projects and have rough cost estimates. We also referenced our TBP implementation plan that we presented earlier this year. And then the city's adopted 2025 budget aligns with our approved projects currently for 25, and subsequent budget approval processes like the upcoming one for 2026 will help us lock in and refine our upcoming projects for the following year. And the intent is that the TIP is updated annually. It can be updated more frequently than that. And if council would prefer that, I can bring this back later at the end of the year once we get through the 26 budget cycle and we've updated our 6-year CIP through that process, and we can update the TIP. Right now, we're just trying to get caught up. Specifically for the Main Street Roundabout project, it's important for us to get this approved through the process so we can work with WashDOT and get it on the STIP and not hold up our federal funding. So just to continue through the process, this is a slide of our 6-year capital improvement plan, which is within the city's adopted comprehensive plan. This is a list of our, for the 6 years of all of our identified capital projects for streets, parks, facilities, and storm. The ones highlighted in red are specific to streets, which are shown and included in our transportation improvement program. This is a blow up of the streets and sidewalks projects, which are in our 6-year CIP that we just looked at. This particular sheet is also in the comprehensive plan and was included in your staff report for reference. But this is a portion of the identified capital projects, which we'll see on the TIP. Feel free to, I can stop if you guys have any quick questions, or I can keep going and we can talk about it towards the end.
That previous slide that you showed is
Yes.
not in our packet.
Okay, let me, I have the packet right here. Let me see if I can find it.
Not the slide that's on the screen, but the one that had the red and
Yes, this one right here.
Yeah.
No problem. This is our 6-year CIP. I agree that this whole slide was not in the packet. I did include this one here. But this large spreadsheet was broken into individual pages that are within chapter 8 of the comp plan, and I can pull that up as well if that's helpful.
so
Sorry about that. This just jumped.
the slide that
This is our comp plan.
after that is
Or sorry.
highlighting the red.
Yes, correct. Yep. So this is the large view of our big spreadsheet for our 6-year CIP, which has also parks, facilities, and storm projects. But I've blown this up. I will mention, I guess this has project names, costs, and costs per year, and grant information on the right, which is in our 6-year CIP. This sheet right here are the same projects. This particular sheet I pulled from our comprehensive plan, and it should align with our 6-year CIP. This does have a column for descriptions, but it does have the same information about project numbers, the names, and then the costs per year, but it does not list the grant information. But I'm happy to pull up the reference documents as well.
So I guess that leads to a question. You said the 20th Street roundabout and frontage improvements, we got a $2.80 million grant from the federal government.
Yes, the grants for $2.5 million.
2.5 million. So since that cost is 2.5 million or estimated cost, should there not be a note that basically it's not costing the city $2.5 million?
Correct. So we can talk about, I guess, what information is required just to be shown on the tip. I think for grant applications. So this is the draft tip, and it's a lot more straightforward.
Right. The reason why I asked that question
Sure. Director Wright, I guess, has a quick answer.
is because that's recent information, right? And we have some issues that we're probably going to address in the next couple of weeks that will maybe reprioritize this schedule. So essentially we have $2.5 million that's now available, correct?
Maybe I can answer that question. This is Russ Wright, Community Development Director. So what you're looking at are two tables. So you have table 9.1, which is the 20, that may not be, I think portions of your packet are in there 9.1. 9.1 is the 20-year plan that has all of the city's capital projects listed out, including potential fund sources. Then when you get down to the 6-year plan, those are those projects that you have to start budgeting for. And in this case, some of the allocated funds are from a grant resource. They're not transferable. So those are essentially debited to that project there. It builds up the funding for each individual project. And that's what's shown in table 9.2 are those nearer term projects that a funding mechanism is being constructed for. So it's not, as you say, the 2.5 can't be transferred to another project. It is.
I'm not saying
Yes.
it's paying for a project that's on the list. So it alleviates or it allows 2.5 million that we had planned for this project can go to another. The federal money cannot go to that project, but the money that we're allocating through the TIP process can go to satisfy other projects.
No, in this case, that was the impetus to start construction of this project, is because we obligated the federal funds. So there's not another 2.5 million available. It's what's available in our traffic impact fees and otherwise allocated by the council. And I believe the city attorney would like to add a comment.
The TIP doesn't allocate funds. It simply identifies broad projects that we need with the cost of those for purposes of budgeting. And as you get down to the narrow list, the smaller list, then you start to where are we getting the money to pay for this?
I totally understand that. You just said it was for budgeting purposes. We now have $2.5 million from the federal government that pays for a project.
Right.
So we had budgeted $2.5 million, I believe, from city funds through the TIP for that project. Now that money can be utilized for something else.
Well,
So-
if you have
I can,
put money in your budget.
yeah, I'd be happy to jump in. And I know Barb's not here with us this evening, but if you have anything to add, Matthew, feel free to jump in as well. We've always shown the $2.5 million federal earmark here. I don't know if you could see it on the screen, but this is, I blew up our current capital improvement plan. Right now, what we only ever, we have budgeted is actually in 2025 through our budget approval process. So these funds here, had assumed what grant revenue and other local revenue was going to fund those dollars. Everything 26 and future are just projections and placeholders, and nothing's actually been budgeted. I think for the last at least 2 years, we've known that this 2.5 federal earmark was allocated for the roundabout project, and it's always just been a placeholder. And we've been trying to target construction and 26. So that's getting closer.
Can I
Yes.
chime in here and see if I'm
Sure.
following this? So Director Wright, if I understood you, this wasn't 2.5 that we allocated and then we got reimbursed for. If we hadn't gotten the federal money, we just never would have done this project.
That's correct.
Okay, so essentially for our city money purposes, it's like we just never had it. So there's nothing that can be reallocated. It was like our budget ceiling got increased by 2.5 million from the federal government. That makes sense.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, as we look for the next subsequent year, to actually balance capital projects and budget for them, we try to weigh the scale and the quantity and the workload. And that'll be one item that we take into account. But yeah, the federal money has just been kind of a placeholder, but it's never been allocated. I think when you look in future years, we have, in 2028, we're showing $14 million and we don't necessarily have all the revenue secured and budgeted to fund that project. These are identified future projects and rough cost estimates that we're tracking so we can try to pursue grant funds and find other funding to complement our local funding to be able to actually build these projects. But if we don't secure the funding, they just continue to get pushed out and the costs continue to go up. I hope that makes sense for a little bit this is our current 6-year CIP. I did want to just quickly highlight, as Director Wright was overviewing some of the references to the tables. This is Chapter 9 of the Capital Facilities Plan, which is in our comp plan. It's about 45 pages, but the last 15 or so are specifically Table 9.1, which is our 20-year Capital Facilities Plan, organized by TIZ zones, so that we have 3 traffic impact zones within our city. And that's the table 9.1. And then they're broken out by non-motorized projects as well and stormwater.
Do we not use capital facility plan though to calculate our mitigation fees?
We definitely do, our traffic impact fees. Yes, all these identified projects for the next 20 years. We've worked with a consultant and they've identified the infrastructure that's needed to be upgraded to keep up with the projected development and zoning and goals of the city. And then they have rough cost estimates that they're shown here in 2024 project costs. And I think that they taking into consideration the total project costs for each traffic impact zone. And then as development occurs, they have to assess and pay a proportionate share of their impact on our infrastructure to help offset the costs for these projects.
So I'm going to circle back here, but
Yep.
since this project, 20th Street and Main Street Roundabout, was included in the capital facility plan, wasn't that utilized for purpose of calculating the mitigation?
That's a good question. We actually, we could verify, but I remember working with a consultant, we gave them revenue projections, and I think that I will verify before I confirm, but told them, we've shared our 6-year CIP and told them what significant grants we were anticipating, in addition to like projected revenue for our TBP program and our typical revenue for our REIT and other revenue sources. We fed them all what our projected revenues typically are and what our inflation rate assumptions are for the next, I think, 20 years. We worked with the finance team as well. So they tried to take into account all the considerations about where the revenue is coming from and what the costs are for these capital projects. So then we can better assess the traffic impact fees for development. Does that sound accurate, Director Wright? Or is
Yeah.
there anything more to add?
And I would just add a couple of more things. So as you set impact fees, we had that discussion earlier this year. One of the components that you look at is a discount rate, 2-year fee. So you're not assessing 100% of your traffic impact fee or any impact fee to the total sum of the projects, because the city has to add a proportion in of local dollars. I would say when our current fee was adopted, the Main Street project was not included. It has since been included. And during the course of this year, we are doing an update, a more comprehensive update of our traffic impact fees. But before we can do that, we have to sort of set the new projects, one that are going to be on the list that Kim is talking about, as well as our non-motorized. So there were a few steps before we could do a complete overhaul of that list and assess new fees. And the last adjustment we did was just based on inflation. So was this project ever part of that original calculation that we've used? No. Is it part of our plan now and will it be included in our updated fee? Yes. Are there other factors that go into setting what mitigation fees are? Yes. There's assumptions of grants, local dollars, other funding mechanisms, not to be confused with our TBP, which is drawing funds for similar projects from other sources. Does that answer your question, or are you still, I understand, I believe you're just saying we have a pot of money, these go towards projects, and we do use these as a base to set project values and what we collect on them.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess the next question is our TPB, Transportation Benefit TBP program, consistent with our CIP?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is,
So is that another list somewhere?
the TIP, the tip that we're looking at tonight is a combination of both. So I can get to that point as
This is
well.
the TIP, not the Transportation Benefit Program. The
No, they're
TIP.
listing the TBD.
So let me keep going here just a little bit further.
Oh, okay. I apologize. Thank you.
Can
Okay.
I real quick ask a question?
Sure.
So this kind of ties into a couple of our citizens' comments. It looks like number 4 on your list for 2025 and 2026 is the 117th Avenue Northeast Sidewalk.
Right.
I know we had a couple citizens comment on that tonight, and of course, that's been a hot topic. So is that then slated to happen in 2025 and 2026?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think if what I'm showing on the screen, this is what was presented and approved for the 2025 budget. And this 6-year CIP was included in the comp plan. So this is what we went through last year. And I just wanted to report the same dollars for this TIP process that we're working on right now this evening. So we're always, oops, I'm sorry that it keeps jumping on me. So we were projecting to budget $1.2 million in 2026, specifically for the 117th Avenue Sidewalk Project, which is a TBP number 4 project. And we've never tried to amend that. That's what our plan as of last year was approved for. I know.
So was the pilot kind of like, so instead of doing this, we might do that, but this was never really taken off the table?
Correct. Yeah. And I hope
Okay.
we've been consistent with that messaging. I think it was an idea that like this sounds like an interesting idea that would be really cost effective and, potentially has some benefits. And we've learned a lot from the pilot program and received a lot of feedback. We do intend to bring a mid-year capital project update back to council. I think we're targeting July 15th because it sounds like the next meeting is pretty full. And at that meeting as well, we'll give a quick summary of the couplet project. But there was, sorry, I'm getting a little off topic. There was an open house last week, and then the final one is this week. And that was one of the metrics. We're trying to just collect the data. But I think I have heard from the director that, we're not going to be pursuing the one-way couplet, but the 117th Avenue Sidewalk project is still an identified TBP project. We still were always, projecting $1.2 million in 26. We're going to refine that cost estimate when we actually optimize what that design is going to look like, because we've had a lot of feedback to consider. And I'm not going to be able to commit right now that we'll be able to complete construction next year, because I know we want to be sensitive when this, the summer break with school, and we don't know quite what we're building yet, but it still is on the list. And we've been, saying that to the residents as well. So I just wanted to be consistent with our previous plans and just report the same numbers that are in our current comp plan, which is the 1.2 in 2026.
Thank you.
No problem.
What would keep it from not moving forward?
Oh, I don't know if I said that. I said, I think we've always intended for it to move forward. I just said I was reluctant to commit to like construction and getting it completely built out in 26.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood you.
You know, I'm sorry.
So Kim, I've got a question here.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at a couple of different charts. One is the table 9.2.
Okay.
Which is the capital improvement plan.
Let me.
And then you had a great big chart that is microed on an 8.5 by 11. But I put it out on 8.5 by 17 so I could look at it. And there's a couple of things that come up on this. One, TBD 06, North Lake Shore Drive sidewalk, $225,000 in total cost for, total cost, I'm sorry, never mind, I found it. Dang it.
So, and I'm sorry, we haven't spent a lot of time with the tip yet. I did have 2 slides and I split up the table that was in your packet in between 2 slides if we wanted to look specifically at that. I just wanted to refresh where we have, gotten to this point with our 6-year CIP in terms of so this is where we ended the 6-year CIP that's in the comp plan. This had our identified streets and sidewalk projects for the next 6 years. This is the tip that, I was hopeful to get your feedback on this evening. I don't think it's typical to show 2025 funds, but I just wanted you to be aware of what was currently budgeted and what we're working on this year. But really, I was trying to highlight upcoming priority projects for the next 6 years with rough cost estimates. They're not locked in with a prioritization, but they're kind of balanced with available grant funds and the transportation benefit district delivery schedule that we overviewed. So I have 2 slides that zoom into this. So this is the top half of the graph and the table and the bottom half of the table. And then the next slide is the middle part of the table because that has the chunk of the 18 TBP projects since we've already completed 2. But just as a quick high level summary, the top half of our capital projects, which are our Main Street improvements, our roundabout, 131st, some other ones here. And then the bottom of the table are some of our annual programs that we just wanted to keep. They're, relatively large, over $100,000. And it's typical to have some programs listed. And then they also make us potentially eligible for grant funds.
So I think the real question tonight is in your packet. There is on page 71. That's really the chart to be focusing on that cross-references. Is it in the CIP and what those numbers are? And I think, and correct me if you're wrong, you're just asking if council would like to amend the order or reprioritize the projects on this list that we've explored through our 20-year program.
Yeah, this evening I was hopeful that what we're looking at is consistent with the plans that have already been adopted and reviewed. In terms of what projects are already actually on the list. The cost estimates are preliminary cost estimates that are consistent with previous plans and what we've, overviewed before. Nothing that, we're looking at for 26 and future is going to lock us in to any financial obligations. I guess to answer your question, I just wanted this opportunity for council to see this list and receive any feedback or concerns or directions from you, because the intent is that we're coming back next week for the public hearing to present whatever the final draft of this tip list is for public comment. And then the next step would be to request adoption through resolution of the tip. And actually I have a next step slide towards the end. Maybe I should just jump to that. There we go. And then, so once council adopts the tip, we have 30 days to get it filed with WashDOT. And then we'll also be coordinating with PSRC and we'll ensure that the federally funded projects on the STIP, in addition to the regionally significant projects on our tip, are added to the STIP, which is the statewide transportation improvement program. And that's a requirement to make us eligible to apply for some grants and to be able to obligate some grant funds. And then we'll just repeat the process as necessary. So that's kind of what I had for this evening. I am interested to hear if there's any heartburn or requested revisions with the current draft tip. that's in your packet, and I have 2 slides here. The middle part is the whole list of the 20, well, except for the 2 that's already been constructed, transportation benefit program projects. I thought that was important to have them in the list and kind of show roughly the sequencing and the rough order of magnitude that we're currently projecting. But we will continue to bring this back and update it as we start working on our 2026 capital project lists and available funds. And we'll be updating our 6-year CIP for that process. And then this just goes hand in hand.
So the transportation benefit program projects need to be listed on the 6-year TIP.
They need to be listed in our 6-year CIP. And I think all street and transportation and pedestrian improvements locally need to be listed on our citywide tip.
Okay, got it.
I don't have to list ones that are going to be out prior more than 6 years.
Right.
I just thought it might be helpful to keep track of them. I have seen some agencies have, just the column on the right, that's future years, just so we know it's an identified upcoming project.
Now, I'd like to move up the US 2 trestle replacement.
And if we could get some numbers on there,
Yeah.
you somehow left all those blank.
I saw that one in our capital facilities plan, and I thought it wasn't a bad idea just to, I've known council has talked about it as a priority, and so we can use as much muscle as we can to have it on our tip, and maybe, I'm sure it's on the step already, but.
So Kim, if there's not a short answer to this question, I can just follow up later, but, and I think we might have even addressed it at one point. Can you remind me again why, if we're not doing the one-way couplet, why 1/17th is prioritized so much higher up the list than 1/16th? I mean,
Sure.
I guess it never really sunk in for me why doing the one-way couplet, we'd look at hitting them both at once. But then when we look at other options, they're split up the way they are.
Yeah, that's a good question. 117th specifically, between 20th and 26th, right? Yeah, the north limit, is the actual project corridor that was identified in the transportation benefit, I think, district at that time, resolution. And that particular project for the sidewalks and the cost was only intended to provide, sidewalks or non-motorized improvements on one side of 117th. It's just evolved since the end of last year with the idea of this couplet, because they're similar corridors, they're long runs, and they have similar roadway attributes with not any existing sidewalk facilities. I hope that kind of answered your question. But I think the TBP sales tax and the revenue is supposed to always and still support, a sidewalk or some non-motorized improvements, whatever that looks like, along 117th. I think we've committed to our taxpayers and that's was in the resolution, and we intended to deliver on that. We haven't made any promises about what might happen with 116th. I know our public works director is interested in trying to do something similar. We're going to evaluate what we can do that's cost effective, but a better approach to not impacting the travel lanes as well. But we're going to look at available funding. We'll look at available grant sources and try to see if we can also identify improvements for 116th, because we know that they're needed and necessary as well, but they weren't one of the projects that were included in the original resolution for the TBP.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess just in terms of feedback, that would be one thing I'd at least be interested in hearing about, because my understanding was those roads were important because of the foot traffic to and from the school. So to me, it seems like if one is important, they are both important. And I understand what you're saying about, kind of the lines drawn by the resolution, but if there is anything we can do to increase safety on a high use, foot traffic to school route, then I'd be interested in seeing that moved up.
Yeah, to answer, another part of your question, I did save a couple of slides from our TBP presentation, and this was the criteria that we used to evaluate the longer list of TBP projects, and 117th scored higher. I can't say for certain if 116th was evaluated as well, but I know that when 117th was a priority one, and it's number 4 on the list of 20 that, we that were included in the resolution.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Anything else?
I guess I just want to clarify, are there any requested revisions or clarifications or changes from council that you think would be helpful for me to incorporate prior to the public hearing and the requested action for next week?
Could you refresh my memory with the Cavallero dedication to the city from Snohomish County? Was the 79th Avenue Southeast Access Road a condition of that acceptance, or is that just a item that is on this list that?
I am not aware of that being a condition from the county. I do know it's a high priority project for the school district, and we've talked about that with them recently. And I think that as some of our team were recently trying to pursue some funding sources for that. So that's why it is on the list.
Okay.
Priority for the school district because of the traffic problems we have over there for Cavallero?
I think access, yeah, for the Cavallero Mid-High School and congestion along 20th Street and signal timing and queuing is what I've heard from them.
Okay, so I have a question about that.
Mhm.
The access road that goes into Cavallero from 20th is very narrow. I mean, that's not really, are we widening that also?
Yeah,
Back of Cavallero?
I believe that's the intent, is that 79th would be widened and would tie in to the loop road that serves Cavallero Mid-High. So they'd have
All right.
more than just one access point, which is, good for safety and circulation and traffic flows.
Any other questions or feedback for Kim? All right, thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to item 12 on the agenda. Really quick, I want to double check, since we modified that, are we still expecting action to follow?
Yes.
Okay,
Can I make the announcement if you don't?
please.
Okay, and then I'm, we're going to go into executive session, confidential session per RCW 423110. This is to evaluate the qualifications of a candidate for appointment to elective office. There potentially could be action. We're going to ask for 20 minutes. So let's take 2 minutes and then start at 7:35, come back at 7:55. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here, I got it. Okay, I think we are back already.
No, he's driving.
Always right.
Yeah. Okay, so we are back in regular session. It's 7:56. Councilmember Ewing has joined us. He started at the beginning of the executive session and he is still on with us right now via telephone. So I just want to make sure I made note of that and I'll turn it back over to the council.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion that council dispenses with adopted procedure and that we appoint Kurt Hilt to position number 7.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I think as the motion maker, I'll start. I think that we have a very unique situation in front of us where the person that we appoint to this position will in effect only be in this position for 5 months, not counting the council break that we have. So really a matter of 90 days. This position, the person appointed this position does not have the opportunity to file to run for this position because the filing window has already closed in our county. And I think it would be of great benefit to our council to appoint someone for this 3 to 4 month period who has experience, not just on city council, but sitting on the Lake Stevens City Council, who sort of understands the position we're in now and the budget work that we'll need to do over the next several months. And so in that scenario, Mr. Hilt is uniquely qualified for this very unique scenario.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to say that I have appreciation for everybody who took the time to write in and apply for this position, knowing it's just going to be for a few months. And then we have some really good candidates. If people applying for the position, if it was a little more long term where they could learn the system and step into that role. But I agree that Kurt Hilt already has that experience. He knows the process, and not just for any city council, but Lake Stevens City Council. And I think there's benefit to that because we've got a short period of time before we go on break for 6 weeks and then we come back. So again, there's so little time for someone with no experience to get caught up.
We're just going down the line.
I would agree with Councilmember Jorstad and Councilmember Shipman's comments. I think the short period of time that we're dealing with is problematic, I guess, and bringing someone on that is experienced, having served for 4 years on the council, is an asset, understands the process, the procedures, and would benefit the city and the citizens in a positive format aspect. In again, the learning curve is rather significant, and I think it's important that we have an experienced past council member take that position.
Nothing from you?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. So I agree with almost everything that the rest of you have said. My concern is, despite that, I am not personally familiar with Mr. Hilt, and I have 4 sentences on a piece of paper. And so I am just personally not comfortable. I mean, there's, as someone mentioned, we've got a lot of qualified applicants, and I just don't feel like I can get to know somebody and really get a feel for their, ability to integrate with this council and do this job, with all due respect to past experience based on all I've got in front of me. So that's kind of where I'm at on this.
I want to echo the concern of making a decision based on a piece of paper. I can very much understand that. And I think if I didn't know Mr. Hilt or, other people, I think I would can definitely see where you're coming from. I think the thing for me is that we're not picking a long-term council person. It's an interview for a 90-day job. Right. And so if I'm, and I think I evaluate the information differently because of that. If I'm picking someone for a long-term position, I do want to know, the big picture, and I want to know, want to have those conversations. But if it's a 90-day temporary position and I see in front of me someone who has held that position before, who has the qualifications to do that job and did a good job before, in my humble opinion. And so then I trust that they would fulfill the obligations of that 90 days.
And piggybacking on that, he's also someone that our citizens has voted in before, right? He was elected prior, right? He wasn't appointed in his prior serving. He was elected. So he's someone our citizens have chosen before.
Yep. Okay. So with that, hearing nothing else. What? Yes.
Oh, do we want just Steve?
Oh, yes. Got Councilmember Ewing via cell phone there. Steve, do you want to go ahead and say anything, or you ready?
Yeah, I want to comment. I want to acknowledge all the comments that have been made by my fellow council members. I do want to say that I've watched Kurt Hill over many years. I've attended numerous council meetings where he was present. He's well prepared. He's thoughtful. He's balanced. And I appreciate, if we were to weigh the experience that he brings in, how would that weigh in versus, with the short timeline that we have versus the experience that people have just with city processes and the city dynamic. It's just not something that you can pick up in a short period of time. So I really respect and appreciate what Kurt Hill offered to the city during his years of service. And since he's left the council, he continues to support the city. So, while I am reticent to bypass the interview process, I understand the time constraints that we're under.
All right. Thank you. So with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We get Steve. And all those opposed? Nay. Okay, so the motion passes. We have our new interim council member, it looks like. All right, anything else? All right.
If you're done.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.